Hi everyone and welcome back. My new single Ephemeral Eyes has been out for a few weeks now and is available to stream on all the main platforms. You can find a link to that in the description of this video. In the interim, I've been sort of going into some kind of behind the scenes of how the song came about, where some of the ideas came from, the structure, the production, some of the mixing. And today is actually part 2 of a sort of production deep dive. So in part 1, I kind of went into the sort of a more kind of rounded bird's eye view of how the structure came together and how all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle slots into place. And in the first video, I talked about the kind of history and the evolution of the song from this kind of piano idea from 12 years ago into this kind of drum and bass type thing in the middle, and then finally to the song as today. So if you'd like to sort of see what those were about, then there'll be links to those videos as well. Today I want to focus specifically on the kind of real drum and bass kind of middle section of the song. So we're going to talk about the sound design, the modulation and effects, and some of the vocal decisions. So let's dive in. So this is the section of the song that we're talking about today. So what you're actually hearing is a kind of Reese bass, if you like, designed in FM8, combined with a heavy electric guitar and a dedicated sub bass, all kind of glued together. So I'm just going to go ahead and solo those. And then we'll look at them sort of one by one as well. It's the electric guitar, the Reese, and once again, all together. So let's look at the Reese first. So here's the kind of patch I made in FM8. So it's quite a sort of, in a sense, quite a typical sound for a kind of drum and bass style Reese, with the sort of obvious difference being that it's made with FM rather than with kind of analog or wavetable. So what I kind of went for was a bunch of operators here. Most of them are kind of sine-based waveforms, parabols, whatever. With some of them, like this one, I wanted it to be a bit more complicated, just to give it a bit more movement. So a lot of the kind of rhythm, the kind of waviness, the sort of wobbliness of the sound comes from these sort of slightly different shaped waveforms all kind of interacting with each other. Here's what it sounds like when there's no interaction and no FM going on. And then as you start to dial in the sound a bit more, as you start to kind of modulate these operators together, you start to get something closer and closer, and you get more distortions and more kind of lovely compounding of those different waveforms. Obviously, it's easy to go too far. You can start to make it sound a bit too weird, chaotic or whatever, and start to lose some of that rhythmic element and you get chaos instead, which might be what you want, but in this case I wanted to have some rhythm to it. Now, I added a bunch of different distortions and filters. So most notably, the thing that's making the biggest difference is the Reason Scream unit. I love this distortion. It's fantastic for just beefing anything up. In this case, I think it's on a tape emulation. But also the Soundtoys Decapitator is ridiculously good, and it's in sort of parallel kind of 50-50 mix mode. And then finally, FabFilter's Volcano. I love the way that you can dial this in to kind of scoop out or filter out certain bands, and then you can, like an analog filter, introduce more saturation at the kind of crossovers. So I did that on this occasion to remove the low end in order to give the sub bass the room to dominate down there, and to roll off a lot of the highs to give the vocal the chance to dominate higher up. This is the electric guitar, so Phase Mistress, the Soundtoys Phaser plugin. I do like a lot of Soundtoys. A really, really beefy compressor, this classic UAD distressor, working in full nuke mode, and ridiculous amounts of gain reduction. I just wanted to kind of completely stomp the sound into place so that it all sounds completely glued. So the guitar gives the sound kind of body, grit, but most importantly it gives it rhythm. You know, I'm plucking it and playing it with a sort of slightly syncopated pattern just to give it a kind of a human feel to it, so it doesn't sound completely synthetic. Now, in terms of the vocals and the effects and the sounds outside of the drums and the bass of that drop, these are what you're kind of left with. The sort of some of these kind of beds of synths, like you can hear there's a slightly atonal drone almost. It's a bit detuned. And then the vocals by themselves are very distorted, lots of delays, and lots of little bits of ear candy, like the word bondage, like coming in on the right ear with like a heavily distorted, almost telephone-like effect. And then these sort of pads are quite subtle. They're very far back in the mix, but they just kind of contribute to giving it all a sense of texture. And of course, there is reverse reverb just all over everything throughout this song, and to be honest, throughout this entire EP. I absolutely love reverse reverb. It's probably my favourite effect on vocals, on instruments, on just everything. So I hope that was an interesting sort of deep dive into the sort of more produced section of this song. I'm really looking forward to showing you all the rest of the EP, going into kind of more behind the scenes tidbits of both this song and the others when they come out. As always, please feel free to give us a like, comment and subscribe if you're enjoying having a look at the sort of moving parts of this song. And I will see you in the next video.